Welcome back. In this note, we are going to continue on to discussing dividing radicals. Now, the dividing process actually mirrors the multiplying process pretty well. So when we talk about how we go about doing this, we're going to be talking about dividing the outsides of the radicals, dividing the insides of the radicals, and then once we have that single radical, now we're going to talk about simplifying the radical. So, again, the big idea to remember when we're dealing with this is when we're dividing two things, you divide the actual numbers. That's where the 5 comes from. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. Then, when you're dealing with exponents, you end up subtracting the exponents. That's where the x to the 3 comes from, 7 minus 4. So again, big things that I need you to remember, I need you to recall so you can be successful when doing this. So let's take a look at this. Looking at my first example, 200 divided by 2. Well, that's going to leave me with 100. X to the 10 divided by x to the 4. Again, when you're dividing things with exponents, you end up subtracting those exponents. 10 minus 4 leaves me 6. Y to the 3 divided by y to the 5. Well, 3 minus 5 is a negative 2. Only remember, we don't really like negative exponents. So instead of leaving that as a negative exponent, right away, I'm just going to plop that down in the denominator. Okay? And leave it just like that. So if you ever end up with a negative, just plop it straight downstairs. You'll be golden. All right, well, now that we've done that much, now we can start actually taking the square roots of these things. So square root of 100 gives me 10. Square root of x to the 6. So remember, that's a 2 out there. So how many times does 2 go into that 6? That's going to be 3 times. And how many times does 2 go into 2? Well, just once. So that'll be left as a y. All right. Now looking at the next example. Well, for the next example, 4 divided by 2, doing the outsides first, that's just going to be a 2 sitting out front. $40 divided by 2, well, that's going to leave me with 20. X to the 7 divided by x to the 3, so 7 minus 3 is going to leave me with x to the 4. And now, on the bottom, y to the first divided by y to the fifth, so 1 minus 5. Well, that's going to leave me with a negative 4. A negative 4, I'm going to plop that right on bottom. All right, so I have this to start with. Now, let's see what I can do to keep simplifying from here. Well, notice that 20. 20 is not on my list of perfect squares. So this one isn't going to be perfect, all right? That 20, how can I break down that 20? Well, that 20 is basically 4 times 5. So remember, you're going to go to that list, okay? You're going to go to that second column and see 4 is what breaks out. Well, what is the square root of 4? Well, the square root of 4 is 2. So I'm going to have a 2 that breaks free, and then a 5 that's stuck inside the square root still. Now, that x to the 4. So the x to the 4, remember, this is a root of 2. So we have a square root. 2 goes into 4 twice. So that'll pull out as an x squared. And then on the bottom, again, square root means a hidden index of 2. So 2 goes into 4 twice. So that'll pull out as a y squared. So to simplify this, 2 times 2 leaves me with 4. And that's the only thing you ever have to worry about changing. Everything else at this point is going to stay exactly as is. All right, so here again, just make sure you remember the process, the steps along the way. So you, you divide the numbers, subtract the exponents, then simplify the expression. And in simplifying, sometimes you may have some things left over on the top of the fraction. And that's fine to have things that you have to leave inside the radical. It happens. But just make sure that you simplify appropriately. All right, so thank you for joining me for this video. Make sure you have all of it written down, and then make sure you come and ask me if you still have any questions.